His name was Aaran of Clan McLeod. His father was the leader of Clan McLeod, one of the 5 clan leaders and noble, proud warrior. Aaran grew up on his father's knee, listening to the stories of his father's tales of adventure, glory, hunting, and, of course, battle. He loved to hear stories of the mainland. The Isle of the Highlanders was separated from the mainland of Heathmoor, and thus only those commissioned to join the war in Heathmoor left the Isle to go to war. More and more young men were being called into war lately, and few returned. But Aaran's father had returned, and had many stories to tell. Of frightening demons in a swampy land with curved, razor-sharp swords. Of men made of steel that could walk through arrow fire like it was raining. And of warriors who danced among fire and smoke like phantoms. All of it so unbelievable that, of course, Aaran absorbed every word. He wanted it as well, to see the mainland and to bask in the glories of battle, to behold these strange and marvelous warriors. But his father always told him the same thing. No matter what, don't forget your roots. When the truce of Wyverndale occurred, it was rumored among the leaders of the Highlands that the peace would finally come, and they could finally return to their normal and simple lives, until Horkos rose up in defiance. War had returned, and the Highlanders were called immediately to war. Valkenheim was in danger. Astria was attempting to build a lasting settlement in Viking lands, and the few Viking jarls who rebelled against her needed assistance from the Lord of the Hills. Aaran's father and Clan McLeod answered. "Do not fear," he smiled and told little Aaran, only 14 at the time. "When I return, I will have more stories to tell." But 5 years later, Aaran's father returned to the Highlands on a pyre. His eyes closed and his arms crossed. Clan McLeod was routed and destroyed at the hands of Astria and her warmongers. Though they fought valiantly, Astria had established her foothold in Valkenheim, and not even the strength of Clan McLeod could dislodge them. The flames of cremation licked his father's body, and Aaran could only stand in mourning, still hearing the stories of his father echoing in his head. Stories of a world beyond this island, but that world now seemed so bleak and dark. What monsters could live in there that would do this to his father? War was supposed to be beautiful and adventurous, discovering new battlegrounds and matching wits with your enemies. And McLeod, the clan, his father, had always been victorious. In every story, he always won. But this was no story. This was no tale to be told to young ears. No. This was a lesson for a warrior. War is not beautiful. It is not pleasant, and fathers are stripped away from their sons. This would never again happen to Clan McLeod. Years passed, and after the Battle of the Eclipse, the world had grown quiet. Chimera and Horkos were both licking their wounds, but also seeking to rally new allies and reinforcements. For the first time, the Highlander clans became uncertain. Clan Duncan and Clan McNeil believed it was wise to side with Horkos. After all, they controlled Valkenheim. They had won the Battle of the Eclipse, though barely, and many Viking clans had joined them already. But Clan Mackenzie and Clan Cameron argued that Chimera was the better option. Chimera were more altruistic and accepting. They were more open to change. They may not honor the ancient oaths and tenets of their people, but perhaps they could provide something new and better, and though they had lost the battle, they were far from weak. All eyes fell on Clan McLeod and Aaran for his position. Aaran made no decision. He must think on this issue. Finally, after 3 days of meditating, cursing, praying, and howling, Aaran realized he could not decide based on hearsay. He must go to the mainland, at last, and decide for himself who McLeod would side with. Acting in secrecy and carefully plotting, McLeod sent messages to both Chimera and Horkos that the clans of the Highlands were preparing to support a faction, but Clan McLeod was the deciding factor. He would wait in a small town called Laffey, near a fishing village in Ashfell, to meet with emissaries from both parties. It took 1 week for the messengers to arrive. Astria sent out a berserker from her order, and Chimera sent an Orochi. When they met with Aaran, he picked up his mighty sword and beckoned them. "You will fight me," he explained. "My father told me stories of Heathmoor when I was a boy, and many warriors here won his respect. But they had to cross him in battle first. Both of you will battle me, and in doing so you will earn my respect. Now come!" Without hesitation, the berserker charged Aaran, and the two began trading blows. But the Orochi hung back, hesitating. He didn't wish to harm his potential ally. Eventually, though, he couldn't hold back and joined in the battle, though he never made any truly fatal blows. Long and fierce was the dueling between these three. Though they fought fiercely, Aaran was holding both off quite well. The berserker was growing restless and quite angry, but he'd brought a contingency plan. Astria had anticipated that a trial by combat might be what Aaran was seeking, so the berserker had brought a trump card. While seemingly kneeling to catch his breath, the berserker rubbed draconite onto his axe and turned on the Orochi. Horror-struck, the Orochi was struck down by the berserker of Horkos as he struck him across the arm with the drac-infused axe. The Orochi fell, clutching his arm as it bled and the wound turned green from corruption. Aaran saw this viciousness, this power, and this rage. The berserker rounded on Aaran and attacked him with his pure axe. After all, it wouldn't be good to hurt Aaran too much. But Aaran was enraged as the berserker plunged his axe into the Highlander's chest. Aaran barreled through the blow, raising his claymore with a furious cry of rage. "Coward!" he bellowed. He brought the sword down, and in the berserker's final moments he felt the rage of the Highlands buried deep into his skull. The berserker crumpled to the ground, blood pouring out of his head and neck, as if it had been split in two. The Orochi struggled to his feet and looked at the Highlander expectantly. "Does this mean?" You will return to your masters, and tell them of my disappointment in both Horkos and Chimera." "But why?" he asked. "I was not dishonorable." "Horkos displayed its cowardice by attacking with dirty tricks and corrupted stone. Any warrior that uses such underhanded tricks to seize victory are beneath contempt. But you're not much better. You hesitated in the fight, fearing to claim opportunity when it looked you in the face. You Chimera lads preach of peace, and that's all fine and pretty words. But ambition without action is all it is. Pretty words. When the time came to act, you didn't do what needed to be done. Horkos knows how to take action, but the action they take is wrong. And yet you fear to take action even when the action you take is righteous. I will join neither side. I will not join with cowards or those who hesitate. I will not join with those who have forgotten the way of things." With his words spoken, Aaran took his leave and sailed back for his island home to inform the other clans of his decision. The decision did not sit well with the others. Aaran made a vow that he would join neither side officially, and he urged the other Highlanders to join him in his decision. Arguments broke out. Feuds exploded. The Highlands were in disarray as no decision could be made on who the clans would side with. Aaran tried to make a move for a new option. Freedom. The old war was over. This new war had no place for them. They only fought in the faction war because of their oaths to the Vikings, but now this was a war between two covenants, between Horkos and Chimera. The Highlanders did not need to partake in this war. And with no decision yet reachable, the Highlanders idled, waiting for something that might change their positions. It did. When the great drought came to Heathmoor, the Isle of the Highlanders suffered greatly. Rivers and wells dried up, trees and crops shriveled to nothing. The Highlanders were becoming desperate, and again the leaders had to meet to discuss a solution. Before any decision could be made, the Highlanders were approached by a contingent of Vikings who had not joined with either Horkos or Chimera. Vikings who had kept to the old ways, to the ancient traditions. "This drought isn't natural," they argued. "It is the work of nefarious forces. These wars, the loss of our lands, they have upset the balance, and the gods are angry. Horkos has taken and corrupted our Valkenheim home, and Chimera forgets the old ways of war, the ways of our people. We must atone. We must pray for deliverance. If the gods will not bathe the land in water, then we must bathe their altars in blood." The clans were surprised by this testimony and this offer. The Highlanders had never been as strictly spiritual as the Vikings, but they could not deny the merit of this charge. There was something certainly wrong about this drought. Many Vikings had come offering their lives in sacrifice to the Highlanders. "Spill our blood. Take what lives are necessary. We'll do anything." "Why us?" Aaran asked. "Why should we be your executioners?" "You are the ones who saw through the lies of Horkos and Chimera. You are the ones who refuse to appease the cowards and the weak. The Highlanders are the ones who stay true to who you were." Every clan leader looked to Aaran in admiration, for it had been him who had been the one to keep the Highlands from choosing a side. He had been the one to hold back the winds of war. So it was decided. Clan McLeod would carry out this deed. Clan McLeod would cry out to the heavens, perform the sacrifices, and pray for a miracle. Only they were worthy.
During the drought, we turned to the gods for deliverance. Our offerings were answered with rain and wind. From the heavens came something beyond our wildest dreams.
One night, as a great fire was lit in offering to the gods, a great wind suddenly stirred, blowing the ash from the fire so it burned and covered Aaran. He cried out in pain. His brothers and sisters moved to aid him, but he turned them away. "Let it happen," he cried. "The gods test me now. I will not yield. I will not flee from what must be done. Let the ash burn me alive. I will give it all for our people and for our lands. Do not touch me." The ashes burned at his skin, tore at his face, brought tears to his eyes as he was baptized in white hot ash. But when the fire finally went out, he felt free. And he still breathed. Aaran lived, badly burned, trembling from the sensation. His fellows came and brought him to a bed to rest. But by morning, something had changed. Aaran staggered from his bed, his body still burned, but alive. And his tired, burnt body felt the sweet relief of rain as it washed away the burns. Rain. Rain that seemed to never end. Rain that baptized him. The wind howled in pleasure, and the thunderclaps laughed in merriment. The Vikings roared their approval, but Aaran silenced them all with a bellow as he walked up to speak. "Do not cheer, brothers," he screamed. "This is only the start. The heavens have spoken to us in water and wind. The sky weeps tears upon us to bring us relief. But it is not enough. No. Do we take this relief and fall back into contentment, into laziness, complacency, weakness? Never. We have been offered an opportunity. Will you take it?" The roar of the Vikings, and of the Highlanders, and of the sea all around in unison, was deafening. With the waves at their backs, and the wind ushering them forward, the Highlanders rode as one with their penitent Vikings to make war upon Heathmoor, to prove that this blessing was not in vain, that they would never forget their roots, never forget their ways, that they would weather every storm and every drought, and that they would prove to the world their strength. The boy who grew up hearing tales of the mainland, dreaming of fighting in glorious battle, now fought valiantly with a smile on his face. He had reached the precipice. He had weathered the storms. And now he would lead his people to glory. They called him Aaran the Ashen.
What some see as a disaster, we grasp as an opportunity. The gods have sent us a challenge. Will you rise up and accept?